Start into the chapter, it's the Bible study, and my dad goes on a rant and says Dinah allowed herself to be seduced by this guy Haymore, and she was complicit in her own rape. And my daughters are in the room. There's a dead silence after he finishes his rant, because he went on a tirade and nobody's really quite sure why, except Brian and I. We know what this is about. This anger is from the fact that we are telling my parents, no, we're not going to come to this barbecue, but he's taking advantage of this verse as a way to be angry and to put a dig into me about my situation and how I was abused. And I'm just, wow. So the room's silent. He's gone on this rant and nobody says anything. There are 5 other elders present who could say something and no one says a thing. My husband, who is the youngest of these men in the room, pipes up and says, what you are saying has no basis in either the Hebrew translation or in the context. Dinah was raped and it was not her fault. And awkward silence again. Meanwhile, my daughters and I, this is all over Zoom, so we're watching a screen, this is all happening, right? And we're hearing from the screen. My daughters and I are shocked. My girls are just trembling, terrified, upset. They've watched their grandfather get livid about this issue. And then he just said something really horrible about what happened to Dinah. That it was her fault. Meanwhile, I am in the midst of a full panic attack. I don't even know what to call it, but I was trembling. I was literally shaking with all the emotion of, wow, I can't believe my dad just said that. But I knew it was coming. That's the kicker, right? Is I knew something like that was coming because we had told my parents that we weren't going to come over. And this was not okay. And the fact that I knew it was coming, hindsight now, I look back and I'm like, I knew it was coming because I knew I wasn't safe with them. Anyway, so the meeting continues. Nobody else says anything. They just move on and keep discussing other stuff in the chapter. Moving on like nothing happened. And I excuse myself, and church ends. And it takes me a full half hour to get control of my body again, so it's not just shaking with rage and fear and whatever else. And I finally tell my husband, I'm going to go over there and talk to him, because my dad and my mom lived next door at that time. I said, I'm going to go talk to him. And he says, I'll go with you. So we go. So we go up, and I knock on my dad's door, and he opens it. And he's just looking at me like, oh, nothing happened. Like he hasn't just half an hour ago in our church Zoom call stabbed me in the heart, literally, with his statement that Dinah's rape was her fault. And he's just looking like his normal self, like nothing's wrong. And I'm standing there and I am barely holding tears back because this is my dad. I have only ever directly challenged him once in my entire life, and that the one time I ever did something he was not happy with and stuck with it was when I met Brian. I knew that Brian was the guy for me, and I was going to date Brian. And my dad, one night when he realized that this was happening back at that point, he didn't speak to me for weeks, and I had to go and restart the conversation and fix things between he and I, because he just went around in a huff, in a funk for weeks, because I was dating somebody who he wasn't okay with. Anyway, I'm standing there in front of my dad, and he opens the door like, oh, well, what's up? And I just look at him and I said, how could you say that? How could you say that Dinah was complicit in her own rape and that she seduced Haymore? I had told him what had happened to me. He said it in such an angry, rage-filled way that there was no doubt in my mind that the reason he was saying it was because he was trying to jab at us. And I just stood there and I'm like, how could you say that? But she allowed herself to be seduced, and I turned and walked away. And there was a WhatsApp message on our church WhatsApp group where he apologized for his behavior in the church meeting the night before and said that after several hours of talking with my mother, he finally recognized that, oh, actually what happened to Dinah in Genesis 34 wasn't her fault. She really was raped and she had no fault in the matter. And yeah, so he made this apology on WhatsApp, and he said that he planned to apologize in the meeting next.